Today's our last full day in St. John, and we're gonna go hike the Reef Bay Trail today. It's about 4.4 miles in and out, so it shouldn't be too bad. The way back is pretty uphill, so that part might be rough. So we're gonna try to make it there so we can get started.
Let's go! According to Erica, this is considered a highway.
It's labeled Highway 206.
Oh my gosh. Highway.
I can only go by what labeling on the map. We've arrived at the trailhead for Reef Bay Trail. It's gonna be a leisurely walk down, not so leisurely walking back up. We'll see how it is, how long it takes us. Almost there, sort of. We just finished walking down the Reef Bay Trail and we're currently at the Reef Bay Sugar Mill. It looks like the sugar mill was actually two separate plantations. The initial plantation died around, sounds like the 1860s after St. John officially abolished slavery. However, the next family got this new plantation which was using different operations to crush the sugar cane, but it initially died as well in 1916. This was the last surviving sugar mill in operation on St. John, though, up until 1916. So this is only a little bit more than 100 years old, and I think it's relatively well preserved. It's very pretty, probably the prettiest ruins that we've seen since we've been here. These hermit crabs.
We finished up at the ruins. It was the most intact ruins we've seen, still somewhat small, and now it's time for the treacherous hike back.
I wouldn't use the word treacherous per se.
Well, treacherous as in it's going to be grueling and wet and hot and humid.
Let's get it over with.
Boo.
I'm scarred from centipedes.
Ugh. I think the millipedes are very interesting. Centipedes, not so much.
I think that is a centipede.
That looks like a millipede. It's time for rehydration, and it's a good thing we got a dry bag, because my body and back is anything but. How's my bag look?
Disgusting.
Yep. And the uphill begins. This is rough. We're coated in humidity. We're so close to being there. There are the stairs. We're so close. Success.
Oh, let's go get some AC. Oh, there's the cooler.
We're just coated with sweat right now.
It took us about a little over 2 hours, and we were down at the ruins for probably 20 to 25 minutes. The last uphill part was absolutely brutal, though. It wasn't like hard, like we were trying to catch our breath. It was just like we were like profusely sweating. It was so hot. I think that's the difference in hiking here in St. John that we're used to, is I'm not trying to catch my breath as much here, like we are at elevation, but we are just sweating so much. It's so hot here, so it makes it different in a different way, harder in a different way.
If you're used to humidity, you should be fine.
Yeah, we have like 0 humidity at home, so. All right, we're gonna cool off, and then I am absolutely starving, so we're gonna go eat our lunch.
Finished up at high tide. Now we're hitting a ferry to Red Hook and then a taxi all the way back to the airport.
As a Marine.
We are back from St. John, and while we were there, we kind of just jotted down some pros, cons, and we wanted to give you the total cost for us for 1 week in St. John, which we will have at the end of this video. So, do you want to take us away?
I will take us away. So the first pro, and probably the most obvious, would be the beaches. They were the best I've ever seen. Super clear, really blue, and a lot of other activities to do. Normally we would compare a lot of the beaches we visit to Hawaii. However, St. John has officially topped Hawaii. These are the absolute best beaches we've ever been to.
That brings us to the second pro that we thought of, and that was the atmosphere. And what we mean by the atmosphere was just kind of the island life and all of the locals. Literally everyone knew each other, and everyone was super nice. There was like parties in town while we were there. It was just a great atmosphere to be in. You couldn't be upset while you were in St. John.
And the third pro would be the food. It was actually really good, and some of the experiences were really unique, like Lime-Out.
All right, the fourth pro that we thought of was the wildlife. And the actual island itself didn't have a ton of wildlife, though there was like deer, we saw a ton of hermit crabs, we saw donkeys. But what's really cool about St. John is that there's actually a decent portion of the national park that is underwater. So the marine life was really kind of where they got it. They have eels, crabs, jellyfish, stingrays, sharks, and some of it is just right there by the shore. So that's definitely a pro.
And then the last pro would be the size of the island. It's actually a really great size. Honestly, it only took about 30 minutes to get from one end to the island to the other. So you can stay in one village like Cruz Bay and then explore the entire island any given day. You can choose whatever you wanted to do.
Yeah. But there is also a con to that. The island is just small enough that you can get around it super easily, and that's fantastic. But it's just big enough that you really need another transport to get around. There are taxis that go back and forth, but they're super expensive, and so you really do need a car to best see the island for everything that it's worth. So both a pro and a con for the accessibility.
Then the second con is that it was very difficult to get to. We actually took about 4 flights from Albuquerque, New Mexico, that is. And the reason we took 4 flights is because we wanted to do it cheaper than normal. So that was a choice on our part, but still, we also had to take a taxi in St. Thomas to the ferry and then a ferry to St. John. So It takes a bit to get there.
But the third con is us getting a little bit nitpicky, but it is the bugs. I was absolutely annihilated by the bugs. You can see that in some of the videos that we had done before. There's mosquitoes, no-see-ums. I had hundreds and hundreds of bug bites. It would have just been slightly more enjoyable had those not been present.
And then the fourth con is humidity. It can vary from person to person. We live in a very dry climate, so it's not something we were acclimated to. And it was really only noticeable when we were doing physical activities, hiking or anything of the sort, and then we were just drenched in sweat and humidity. But other than that, it was fine.
Most people will probably not find that to be a problem.
No.
The last, and I think the absolute biggest con of St. John is the price. It's a tiny island, it's hard to get to, so the prices are naturally higher. Literally everything, rentals, food, accommodation, you're gonna pay for it. The absolute cheapest accommodation that we had was for our Airbnb tent. It was $75, and that was for a tent. Kind of the price though does lead us in to how much we actually paid for 1 week in St. John. Trying to do some budget, but also splurging on a few things as well. Our round trip flights from Albuquerque to St. Thomas were $910. Our accommodation, which we ended up with 3 nights in an Airbnb tent, 3 nights at our glamping location, 1 night in St. John itself, in Santa Cruz, sorry, and then 1 night in Puerto Rico, ended up being $1,470. Our Jeep rental for 1 week was $686. Our food costs for the week, and this includes grocery store and what we did eat out, which we ate a fair amount of meals from the grocery store. We cooked ourselves. That was $554. And our miscellaneous category is a little bit large, but it does include our scuba diving tips, those sort of things. So that was $860. All of that combined was a grand total of $4,436 for 2 people for 1 week in St. John.
Where is the money? I had to. For us, for the family. I swear.
Whew.
So, it was a lot.
But worth it, especially to have seen some of the best beaches I've ever seen in my life so far.
Yeah, and we knew that this was not going to be a cheap trip. We'd kind of been planning and saving for it. Absolutely worth splurging on. Just know you're going to pay for it in the long run.
Yep.
But that really concludes our St. John trip. We are actually leaving in a month. We're leaving in a month for a cruise. So follow along to see our cruise. We're going to be Follow along to see our cruise. We're going to be cruising on the Carnival Venezia, which is a relatively newly refurbished ship on Carnival. And scene. Hey, we are going to hike let me start over. So we just finished walking down the Reef Bay Trail and we are at the... Nope. Until tomorrow.
Until tomorrow.
That's good. She's gonna call our waters now.